Thank you. Thank you. And welcome back from the break. I'm excited to talk today about our vision for product management in 2024 and beyond. Judging from this morning's conversation, it seems as though about 30% of you have probably tossed your roadmaps out the window, or at least made major pivots to your roadmaps to make sure that you answered those questions that we talked about from our CEOs, from our customers, from our boards, from our investors, is where's your AI roadmap? And so now your roadmaps might look something like this. The other, I don't know, 60, 70% of you who haven't quite yet pivoted your roadmaps and are sort of still sitting on the fence, I'm assuming and guessing they're going to make their roadmaps look you're going to start thinking about how to toss your roadmap out the window, or at least make major changes to it to look something like this in the future. For me at Pendo, this happened a little bit about a year ago. We were well on our journey for AI using machine learning models, already delivering features to the market, but we realized we weren't going fast enough, and we really weren't taking advantage of generative AI the way we should to deliver value to our customers. And so, like many of you, my boss, our board, our customers came to me and said, go faster, do more. And like many of you, I did not have the choice to go out and hire a whole bunch of new people and spend a bunch of more money to solve that problem. So I started thinking a lot about, well, how can I do that? What should I do? And at the time, we had two different front-end applications at Pendo. And we had two different front-end applications because, like you guys, we went out and did our research, and we felt that the jobs to be done were different for these two different scenarios. And so we created two different front ends. But what we had realized about a year after the launch of these two products was there was way more similarity than there were differences. And our customers were asking for features from one for the other. We even had customers who were flipping back and forth, which is an absolutely terrible experience. So we had this magical moment to say, wow, we can conserve our precious engineering resources by putting these two front ends back together and free up teams and time for innovation on our path to AI. And I know that I'm not alone in that experience. Like, if you just look at the news and you watch what's happening, you see some of the biggest companies in the world using AI to drive business outcomes. They're driving revenues. We saw earlier about the valuation multiples and the difference and the importance in that. But it's not just big companies, it's startups too. Right? We heard from Andrew talking about his company. If you just look at the Y Combinator batch, the most recent one, there were double the amount of AI companies than there ever have been before. There were 86 AI startup companies in this last batch. So it's here to stay. But as we've been talking about today, AI is not our whole job. AI is not everything. There are tremendous other changes and pressures that continue to come with us in our maturing and evolving craft of product. And so some of those things are reduce churn, right? Who here is being asked to make sure that they can help reduce churn? I hope everybody, right? How about going up market? We got to be an enterprise company. We got to be an enterprise company. Where are your enterprise features? What's your enterprise roadmap, right? Then we've got to be a platform. We got to be a platform. What does that mean, right? Is that multi-product? Is that an integrated product? But we got to be a platform. I loved hearing the laugh. Reduce tech debt, global expansion, so many scenarios. And it can feel overwhelming as a product manager dealing with all of this sort of wave of things that are coming at us. And all in all, what it has done, it has driven a change in what does it mean to be a great product manager? What does it mean to be a great product team? What does it mean to be a great product leader? So before we get into what does that mean, let's talk about what are the things we need to stop doing that we used to do in search of being great product managers. And so some of the things we need to stop doing is creating portals where we collect lots and lots of user feedback and ignoring it. That's probably a bad idea. And I bet all of us have done that or continue to do that. We got to stop spending hours and hours and hours manually writing product management summaries, pulling data and information from lots and lots of sources. We heard about that from the panel today. Creating roadmaps in siloed places where it's hard for the entire organization to rally behind them and know what's happening, and when they're hard to make changes to. If they're in a whole bunch of Google slides all over the place, that's pretty hard to collaborate around. It's pretty hard to make changes. It's pretty hard to know which version matters today. Taking a wait and see approach to AI. And you can see me smirking a bit when I talk about this one, because we know from the numbers that only about 30% of you have really moved on an AI strategy. But taking a wait and see approach to AI, both in using it in your day-to-day life and in incorporating it into your product, we have to stop. And finally, and I think this might be one of the most important ones, considering your job done when you ship a product. Right? We all were trained when we first became product managers. It's all about what you ship. Ship it. Go. Get it shipped. Well, I mean, yes, of course you have to ship. But that's the beginning of your journey, right? Are you actually getting the business outcomes that you need, right? We have to stop being feature factory focused. Our roadmaps even can't be feature factory focused. We heard the last panel talk about this. What is our North Star metric? How are we experimenting? And what are the different features? And how are we measuring that to make sure that we're driving business outcomes, right? What are business outcomes? They could be revenue growth. They could be churn. They could be adoption or usage. But that comes down to setting that North Star metric for your team. I think the hardest part of this is being able to tie what is the right North Star metric to the broader company business outcome. That's a skill as we become modern product leaders, modern product managers, that we really have to continue to work on and hone. So today we're going to talk about 3 product manager musts in this age of evolution of our craft. And that is, how do we get to know users at scale? Right? Without reading each and every one of those enhancement requests. How do we leverage AI to drive value? And how do we prioritize speed and agility? So first, let's talk a little bit about how do we get to know users at scale. So the first thing, in my opinion, is that triaging is dead. Triaging needs to be dead. There's just no way we can afford enough product operations people or product managers to be able to go through this process of responding and reading every piece of feedback that's out there. Now, so do I think we should ignore the voice of the customer? Absolutely not. To build great experiences, and we've heard about this in a couple of the talks today, it starts with understanding your users. That means you absolutely have to understand through discovery what users say and how do they feel. You have to understand who they are and what do they do. And you have to understand why do they do that. Now, doing this at scale is really hard and really complicated, but it's also critically important to being a great PM. So what are some ways to do that? I think, the old way was we just had all this signal and we tried to summarize it. And we tried to figure out these themes. But when we think about the new way, there are absolutely incredible AI tools out there that you can use to find the signal from the noise here, right? To be able to summarize and tell you, here's the top themes that your users, that your customers, that your competitors are doing and saying about you, and being able to use those to help you prioritize. Now, once you have your top 5 or 6 themes, obviously they change slightly from quarter to quarter, week to week, sometimes month to month. It all kind of depends how fast your industry is moving and your user base is changing. But as you start to see those themes, well, what do you do them now? Well, then it all comes to testing some hypotheses with experiments, right? You have 5 or 6 different things that you want to solve. What do? Well, there's 2 problems. One is, out of those 5 or 6 things, or 100 things, which one do you prioritize? And then there's the second piece of the puzzle, how do you actually solve the problem? And both of those things require experimentation, right? You can do some testing to help you prioritize and see what people react to. What do they think? I think we heard on the panel a bit ago using in-app messaging to do proof of concepts to see how people react. This is how you start to hone in on and prioritize using quick proof of concepts and experimentation to ruthlessly prioritize. The next thing we're going to talk about is leveraging AI to drive value. And obviously that's been a huge part of many and most of the talks today. So when I think about AI, there's two really distinct ways for product managers I think about AI. One is, how do I use AI in my day-to-day life to be more productive? Like we were just talking about, which is getting feedback from users at scale, experimentation. And then it's, how do I deliver AI features in my product to drive value for my customers? I don't think one's more important than the other. I just think it's important when you leave here today. There's a lot of this coming at you to sort of bucket into those two categories when you think about AI, which one you're gonna start with. When it comes to driving customer value and using AI in your product, I think that like most technology changes, it requires two types of thinking. There's inside out thinking and outside in thinking. And we've talked a lot about outside in thinking today, meaning put your shoes in the customer, what's the job to be done, what's the value you're trying to solve. But I think when it comes to AI, it also requires inside out thinking. So what do I mean by that is you got to get your hands on these tools. You got to have enough of an in-depth understanding of how they work and what's the world of possibility to be able to even dream up which customer problems you want to solve. And that's because these tools are changing really fast, and what you could do yesterday is different than tomorrow, right? Like you can literally solve something as these tools change in a day that you couldn't solve a week ago or a month ago. So if you don't have your hands on them and you're not experimenting and you don't have an in-depth understanding of them, I think it is really hard to really unlock the possibilities and sort of expand your innovation and your way of thinking. But when it comes to that customer value, you've got to make sure that what you deliver is a painkiller, not a vitamin. And what do I mean by that is that a vitamin is something that like hopefully we take every day, and maybe we can hope and pretend that it makes us feel slightly better and we like it. But if we miss it and we don't take it for a day or a two or a week, okay, right? Fine. But if you're in severe pain and you don't take your painkiller, you don't forget. You know. So is the product that you're delivering, even with AI, is it a little magic wand, bell or whistle, or is it actually solving real customer pain that's a painkiller? And I think that's critical to challenge yourself, because as we get more and more pressure to walk out of here today, or from our customers or our CEO or our board to deliver AI roadmap, it is really easy to default using inside out thinking and produce a vitamin. For us at Pendo, we've been on this journey for quite a few years. And in the beginning, we're still using machine learning models to deliver AI. And we started that back in 2021. What was a really interesting time is for those of you who use our product, we were delivering NPS insights, which is taking all your NPS verbatims and summarizing them and giving you themes from your promoters and your detractors. And we were literally like 1 month away from delivering this when ChatGPT came out. And we were like, that would have probably been easier after a year and a half of building these models. And so we took a moment, and actually what we ended up delivering to the market was a combination of models we built and using ChatGPT. But it was a fascinating moment and learning experience for us. And I'm sure other people have had similar experiences where they're like, I wish I hadn't built that now that it's here. Then we moved on to our Listen product, which we just recently released. And that was an interesting time, because at the time we were really starting this product, we had these generative AI tools at our fingertips, and we were able right from the beginning to sort of think about building a product using AI from the start versus like how do you come back and add in more features, which is sort of a fun and different experience to think about. And as we think about the future, we're thinking about more insights, and we're thinking about personalization. How do we use AI in our product to help personalize it for our users? And I mean, I think this is the second Netflix comment or reference today, but I think Andrew brought this up. It is great when you log in to Netflix. They know he likes heist movies. They know I like true crime documentary. And probably not that many of my friends or coworkers know I like true crime documentary, but like Andrew said, Netflix does. And that's a great experience because it knows something particular about me and it's able to personalize, save me time in searching, and it's able to get me hooked on keeping coming back to Netflix. So how do all of us think about personalization and using AI to drive personalization in the experience? Here's some just basic scenarios. Even if you don't have a super advanced recommendation engine, how can you use AI to think about your first time user experience versus your super users who've been using your product for a long time? How can you simplify it? How can you just make it obvious? How can you use insights and recommendations for that? How can you use different languages? There's a lot of AI translation out there today, and different personas. Coming back to the earlier conversation, now more than ever in a capital constrained world, utilizing our R&D resources is like holding on to gold. You can use AI and different techniques to personalize the experience. And when you think about the experience, don't just think about when they've logged in and started using your application. It's also how you email them. It's how you use in-app walkthroughs. It's your help center. All of that has to have that same personalized experience. When your users are interacting with your help center or an onboarding guide, they don't think about that as any different than your application. It's all your product, right? So holistically thinking about personalizing across these channels. And then recommendations. Insights and recommendations are such an important way to personalize. These are a couple of our customers who I've seen and been impressed with some of their use of machine learning models when it comes to recommendations. The first is Dealer FX. This is a product that actually helps automobile dealerships with appointments and scheduling, helps them sort of run their whole back office. They're using machine learning models to help suggest when appointments should be. And imagine, how do you think car dealerships make money, right? When you have to take your car to the service department and get it serviced. And they're able to actually drive revenue for their dealerships, for their customers. That's real value because they're able to improve and streamline the getting the appointment experience. Another example is McGraw-Hill, right? This is all around students and learning and textbooks. And these, and when I say textbooks, I mean digital textbooks, right? And McGraw-Hill has been able to use their immense amount of data to help predict and understand when a student is struggling and give a notification, a personalized message to the instructor, to the teacher, proactively to go help that student. So these are incredible personalized insights using AI, driving real value that help drive business outcomes for these companies. These start to be more painkiller in nature because they're driving real value versus a vitamin. The final topic we're going to talk about today as a modern product manager is prioritizing speed and agility. I think it is fascinating as we look at sort of this next crop of startups that are coming up, how quickly and how few people they need to be successful. We all need to be incredibly paranoid about how do we go as fast as possible to deliver value and business outcomes. So we have to first start by thinking about every option: buy, build, and partner. When you think about partnership, sometimes it's as simple as like, could I partner or OEM another product into my product to solve a problem? But sometimes it's going much bigger and thinking about how do you build a community or a tech ecosystem. I think Figma is a great example of that. Figma did not build every single one of these applications that are in its community. There's thousands of them. There's thousands of them that you get access to, you get value from, as does Figma, but they did not have to build each and every one of those. So when you're thinking about building, thinking about that strategy is really important. And then coming back to AI and using new tools. There's so many cool tools out there. How many of you guys have played with ChatPRD so far? Some of you guys have, some of you haven't. It's a pretty cool tool. Coming back to examples of people moving fast, there's a one-person company who did that on the side, and she has a full-time job, right? And built that tool. I don't know if you know that, but I think it's amazing. But these kinds of tools, I'm not saying any one of them are a silver bullet, but trying them out, figuring out whether it's Dovetail, or it's Pendo. There's lots of tools for product managers that are out there today that are utilizing AI to save you time and drive value. Lots of them have free experiences, trials. Try them out. See what works for you. See what really saves time and helps you focus on what matters most for us, which is being product managers, spending time with our customers, thinking through our strategy, running experiments, instead of writing documents and going through tons of data. And then the other piece with speed and agility is I'm a big fan of time boxing and getting experiences and software into your users' hands before you're comfortable. As a product leader, I think one fun trick, and this is something other very successful companies have done, is time boxing almost radically, right? If your team says this is going to take me 3 months or 6 months to do, give yourself weeks. And get it, and I don't mean to be done. I mean to get users in there so that you can start getting real feedback, so you can start to understand, ruthlessly prioritize, and start to understand what really resonates and what's driving value. How do they feel? What are they using? What do they like? What doesn't matter? That way you don't waste those engineering resources spending weeks and weeks and weeks on your hypothesis, even if you've done research, but you don't actually know if they're going to value those different features. So getting through, limited betas, open betas, and just really getting out there quickly and using this framework of time boxing, right? Google AdSense, Amazon Prime, those are examples of major successful launches that have used this time boxing framework before. The critical piece to making this work is really having those North Star metrics and having empowered leaders. You've got to let people run and run fast and not put a whole bunch of process in front of them if you're going to try to use a time-boxed experience like this one. So as we close out today, one big piece of advice I have for you, this I know has been really important for me in my career and success, is to stay curious. This is a world that's changing. Our world has changed so much in the last couple years, and I don't see it slowing down. And so let's all stay curious. So as you leave here today, I'm going to give each of you a challenge to do at least one, hopefully all three of these three things in the next week. Okay? The first one is find a new way to dig into what your customers are saying about you. Maybe this is on GT reviews, App Store reviews, NPS surveys, enhancement requests, support tickets. Find a new way through all of those to dig into your customer feedback that isn't you or any other human reading each one of them. The next is apply AI in a meaningful way, and that might be the first one, but if it's not, another one that meaningfully impacts your day-to-day workflow. Meaningfully does something, saves time, try it out. And then finally, choose any initiative, any feature you're trying to build, anything you're trying to do, and set a time limit for you or your team that you're wildly uncomfortable with. Agree on what's the goal for the time limit and experiment and try it out. You might not have ever built product in that way. Try it just one time on a tiny little team. Try it with 2 or 3 people and see how it works. So thank you all for coming today, and on to the next speaker.